Call the Williams County Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order for Thursday, April 22nd. Roll call, please.
Here.
Mark,
Here.
Chris, Sherelle,
Here.
Dan,
Here.
Barry,
Here.
Louise,
Here.
Shane,
Here.
Adam, Tate.
Here, we do have a quorum. We'll proceed. The packets you've got in front of you, you've got the minutes in there. Hold on. Yes, we have the minutes from the last meeting. What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All oppose? Motion carries. We have new business. We've got a few public hearings. So if you guys wish to speak on this, you know, whether you're for it or against it, just, you have to come up to the podium, state your name, and we'll kind of go from there. So when it starts, you're more than welcome to come up though. But again, just please state your name. And if you're on the phone, if you're not speaking, could you please mute your phone, please? Okay, with that said, we have item number 1. Austin Alexander for a zone change, rural residential for a proposed 7-acre parcel. It's currently zoned agriculture, and it's out in Springbrook Township. Sam, and welcome back to Sam.
Thank you. Good to be back. Sam Miller with County Planning. This one is pretty straightforward. Mr. Alexander is working through a minor subdivision to create this 7 acres from the existing roughly 80-acre parcel. There will be 72 acres that will remain in the agricultural zoning district. The 7-acre parcel will be for his proposed home. During our minor subdivision review, we did come across a discrepancy with the access up to this parcel, so we're working through that right now. The Williams County Water Resource Board owns property that they need to convey to the township. We're working through it, so I was just going to add, within my other 2 recommendations, a 3rd recommendation, that an access easement be created. I'm trying to think of how to word this, but an access easement will have to be created in order to access this property. Raphael, if you could zoom out a little bit, and I can kind of show you what is going on here even more. So to the south, down a little bit. Yep. So to the south there. So you see there's a section line road that runs north and south. Well, the actual road, yep, that one. The actual road, that little red part, yeah, veers away from the section line. So there's like that, I think it's roughly like 200 feet or something like that. That part will need to be conveyed to the township to maintain. So they'll just continue to maintain that road, but they'll have to legally create it. So that's kind of what we found out through the minor subdivision process. But tonight, Mr. Alexander's request is for the zone change. So that's what we're talking about tonight. And the zone change is to rural residential.
Being that that is the current access, and I'm guessing it's been like that for
Yeah, and we even
many
talked
years.
about,
I guess
yeah.
on a prescriptive easement, my question is, will the county pay for that to be dedicated as?
No. So that will be an agreement that's signed between the Water Resource Board and the township.
Okay,
The county just, through our minor subdivision process, we found it.
okay. Okay, any other questions for Sam?
So the Water Resource Board owns that land right there as a easement?
Isn't there a law that on the books that says if there's a road, whether it's on the line or not, if it's been there for 15 years, it's
I think it's
the
a
road?
prescriptive easement that's been there, I believe, for
Yep.
20 years.
Okay, 20, yeah.
I
Right?
think it's 20.
So, I mean, are we just adding more expense to the project, or?
So a prescriptive easement would still have to get approved by the courts. And so you'd still have to go through some kind of process. This way, we can just make it simple and create that access easement. The township is just going to continue to do what they're doing already. And then we can help work with Mr. Alexander to get this all figured out.
And I guess my point was just not that he doesn't have to bear an additional cost and expense to have that surveyed out. I mean, this should not be, I'm with Barry, this has been an easement for longer than most of us have been around. And
Well,
there are
that's
laws
what I-
that
that's what I was
protect
getting at, is it's been that way for so long, I don't know if we need to do anything to it, correct? Or Dan,
don't
you
we-
probably gotta.
If I can interrupt, why don't we have Karen take a look at it
Go ahead, Wayne.
before it goes to the county?
Sure.
Wayne Crowe. Yeah, the prescriptive right would have to have a quiet title action where the evidence is produced and the right is documented to have existed. So there's a legal process they have to go through to convert a prescriptive right to a legal right. And Karen can verify that.
Okay.
So historically, some of the townships, and I'm familiar with this from our township, have roads that they had to deviate from the section line because of water or terrain or whatever. And they basically have in their township minutes that the landowner has agreed that they can deviate the road onto his land and back over to the section line. And no one has ever suggested that anybody needs to do anything legal about that. It's in the township minutes becomes the basis for the right to put the road there.
I agree. Get an opinion from Karen to cover our basis. I get what we're trying to do. So,
Yeah.
I agree. Okay. Any other questions for Sam? Okay, with that being said, I'll open up the public hearing. This is a public hearing, so if you wish to make any comments, please come forward. This is a public hearing. Any public input? Any public input? Last time, any public input? Close the hearing. What are the wishes of the board? Included the access easement that might need to be created based off an opinion from Karen. Yes. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Barry,
Yes.
Luis,
Yes.
Shane,
Yes.
Sherelle,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes,
Mark,
Yes.
Tate.
Yes. Motion carries. Number 2, Peter Berry for Sarah Lawn GTL, requesting a zone change to heavy industrial for 7 parcels. 6 of those properties are currently zoned ag and 1 is currently zoned residential. And this is out in Hardscrabble Township. Sam, you want to go on this one?
Yes. So like was mentioned, this request is for a zone change to heavy industrial for a proposed gas to liquids facility. The applicant will be applying for a conditional use permit for that use in the future. The reason why they aren't applying it for a conditional use today is because we have that 18-month window where after they obtain approval, they have to start construction within 18 months, and they don't know if they're going to be ready to start constructing. So we're just starting with the zone change request currently. As you can see on the screens, the 7 parcels are outlined in that turquoise color. Surrounding uses, the parcels are adjacent to properties within the heavy industrial zoning district. Other heavy industrial uses exist in the area, mainly towards the Highway 1804. There are residences in this area, some mainly to the east. Staff will require buffering and screening once the conditional use permit request comes through. I did send this zone change over to Joel Wilt with the DOT just to kind of let him know that Sarah Lawn has begun requesting this zone change. He did not provide me any comment back. We did not receive any public comment, and the township recommended approval with a condition, and you can see that condition listed in your packet. Basically, what they said is that at the time, I'll just read it verbatim. We approve on conditions as follows. The stipulations for the CUP, when applied for, we would like to restrict certain weight and traffic going on in or out, empty or loaded, to stay in paved road and not allowed on the gravel. So that would be something that's addressed with the conditional use permit. On the phone, we do have Nico. He's with Sarah Lawn, and if you all would allow, he'd like to do a little presentation.
Yep. Yeah, when we open up, give us 1 second here, and then yes, yeah, absolutely, you can. And you guys, is that it, Sam?
That concludes my presentation, yeah.
Questions for Sam? I do have a follow-up question. the zone change, can we tie the SPU to the zone change, say, okay, we can approve the zone change, subject to get billing that. If you don't, and we don't.
Sorry, I can't hear.
Yeah, I
Subject, zone change can be subject to
approval of
them
the
approval of the
conditional
SPU.
use.
So we're not leaving a blanket parcel of land out there for industrial, not knowing what we're getting into. Does that make sense, or is that too much?
Yeah, that makes sense. I would just be, if they did want to break any ground, well, I guess then they couldn't really break ground on a gas liquids facility without the conditional use permit. So yeah, that could be a condition that the zone change would revert back to agricultural and rural residential if a CUP was not approved for the gas liquids facility.
Well, and where I'm going with that is all of a sudden you see these, you approve the zoning, industrial opens the door for a whole lot of entities, and you start popping buildings up there. We lose control, I hate to say control, but you do. I mean, you do. And I don't think that's what we want to do. Certainly not the intent. So, just a question. Okay, anybody else have questions? Okay, with that being said, I'll open up the hearing. Did you say his name is Peter?
Nico.
Nico.
Yeah.
Nico, okay, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much.
Floor is all yours.
I think what we will do is I'm just going to do a very short introduction, and Ron Opperman that is in the room will do the rest. Could I maybe just ask a question on the conditional approval, or how do you want to structure it, for the discussion?
Can you turn your mic up back there so we can hear?
Good. Is
Yeah,
that
what-
better?
Yeah, hold on one second, Nico. Is that as high as it goes? Okay. If you could talk a little bit louder, we'd appreciate it.
It's a bit loud, so can I, this is very loud. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Good. Maybe just ask a question on the conditional approval, and we will, work through this. Is there a risk that you then do the conditional approval of the zoning and then the, conditional use permit is not approved?
Having a really hard,
So he's asking that if there's a condition on the zone change that the zone change won't get approved until the CUP is approved, there's a chance that the CUP won't get approved, and then the property would revert back to its original state.
to agriculture,
Right,
which would be the intent.
right.
I guess that was the basis of my question. I didn't understand if he was
Because,
against that or.
Yeah, I think what we can do is let's address that question later. Sam, can you maybe just put the slide up, and then I will ask Ron to also be there, especially if you guys can't hear me very well.
sure. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to actually say a few words. We really want to make sure that we follow due process, but be a good citizen in what we do and how we do this. And, thus, making sure that we present, to you what is our intent and our strategy. Maybe let's go to the next slide. I'm just going to talk about the vision and alignment, and then Ron will do the rest of the slides, and I will then close off with just, the last slide. So if you can move on to the next. Maybe as a general statement, what is our vision? The vision is to create, clean and cleaner, energy for the future, but also to really make use of all the excess gas that is available so that it's not flared, that you create a downstream industry that is going to be a more robust structure, that we not, succinct to all the boom and bust cycles of oil. what is important to us further is also to be, really working with the same value system. What we've seen so far with the county as well as with North Dakota is, very pleasing, and we really enjoy working with the teams. So what we will be doing in alignment is to, utilize a large volume of natural gas, but also to do carbon capture and sequestration. And it means that, we provide a cleaner and a, more greener energy source. So maybe that's all I want to say on this. And then I'm going to hand over to Ron, to go through some of the other slides.
Right, good evening. I think to start off,
Can you just state your name for the record?
yeah, it's Ron Opperman.
Thank you.
To start off, we thought just to give a high-level overview where we're coming from and how we believe we align with North Dakota long-term strategy with gas and oil. So from the graph that you can see there, oil production in North Dakota will, and this is the EIA forecast, will probably continue at current levels and slightly increase for the first decade or so, and then flatten off after that. But oil production will continue, and that is for North Dakota strategically important, and that's your biggest revenue stream, and to do that. Next slide, Sam. So what happens with oil production? As your wells start aging, you find that your gas to oil ratio increases. So today, there's roughly about 3 BCF of gas that's being produced as associated gas as oil is being extracted. But as those wells age, you'll find that more gas for the same amount of oil is being produced. And you can see in about a decade from now, we're going to sit at about 5 BCF of gas there. So what does this mean for the state? You either have to move the gas through pipelines out and sell it off. So if you look at the typical pipelines today, it's Northern Border, and we know today Northern Border is at capacity. So either the state will have to develop new pipelines or find alternative sources for the gas. And we believe that a GTL facility is one of those components that will help with the removal of that gas. So typically, what are the key building blocks with the GTL? So you typically have gas coming in. You produce clean energy products, and we will on the next slide we'll cover that. But then essentially what we do as well, any CO2 that we produce, we will capture it, and we will at the site we will sequester that CO2. The geology at the site, from the initial work that we've done with the EERC, will show that it is ideal for doing carbon capture there. And we believe by doing this, we will end up with a carbon footprint that is much lower by doing this, and we will be essentially the lowest carbon footprint GTL facility in the world once we've done that. The products will be transported out by either railroad or pipeline. We've got access to all three of those transport modes, and that will then products will then be distributed throughout North America, from the Gulf Coast and in local markets as well. Next slide. So very quickly, what is GTL? Essentially, what we do is we take natural gas, and you can see we take 240 million standard cubic feet per day. That is a big amount of gas. If you look at, for example, the Outrigger plant that is out there on close to the border with Montana, or even the One Oak State Line plant, these facilities, their output is about 240 million scf a day. So we will use their full output coming into our plant. That's the volume. That 240 million scf per day represents today about 8% of the current gas production in North Dakota. We do intend to introduce a phase 2 That means after about 3 to 4 years after startup of the first facility, it will be on the same site, and that will double the gas output or requirement of the gas, and that will take about 16% of the current production. So we believe that contributes to addressing some of the gas problems. So you take natural gas, we prefer it as dry as possible, so we prefer if the liquids are stripped out of the gas, and we want as high as possible methane content. So we take it through a technology. These technologies are proven. The team have been in the GTL game for decades, originally in South Africa. The biggest facility in the world still today is in South Africa, and we've got extensive decades of experience in this. So it goes through a technology where essentially you take that natural gas and you convert that into high-value products. Now, the products that we will produce is 24,000 barrels per day of liquid products, and the three main groups that we will produce is first ultra-low sulfur diesel. And when I say ultra-low sulfur diesel, it's less than 1 ppm, so it's really zero sulfur. And because of that nature of the diesel, it does demand a premium in the market. We will produce Group 3 base oils. Now, if you look at the lubricant that goes into a vehicle engine today, about 80% of that lubricant consists out of a base oil. Now, you get different grades of base oils. Now, the ones that we will produce is what we call synthetic grade. So if you want to compare it, if you take the top oil companies in the world like Shell with their Pennzoil, which is a synthetic oil, that's very similar type of product that we will produce. And then the third one is naphtha. Naphtha could be used as a diluent. Typically, we'll take it through the pipeline back to Canada for the oil sands, where they mix it in with the heavier crude, and that allows the crude then to flow from Canada as export by pipelines back to the US. Next one, Sam. So I did mention that we will do carbon capture and sequestration. We will work with parties to develop a Class 6 deep well sequestration. Typically, you're looking about 10,000 feet deep, goes into that formation. Typically, when you do CO2 sequestration, you want a cap rock on top and you want a cap rock at the bottom that seals it off. And because it's so deep, that CO2 stays in what we call a semi-critical state, which is like a liquid, and it will stay there forever. But there are very strict requirements to develop a Class 6 well. North Dakota's got primacy, so we will do the application through the state, but we'll follow it. To give you an idea, once we do that, the overall, what we call CI score, which is some measure of your carbon footprint, if you look at the conventional refinery, the carbon footprint there, or the CI score, is typically 95 to 110 grams CO2 per megajoule. Once we do ours, we will be less than 60, and we expect it to be closer to 50 grams of CO2 per megajoule, which makes it, as I said, the lowest carbon footprint of its kind in the world. Next one. So just briefly on the team, you'll notice there are a number of plants, pictures that you see there. These are the biggest plants in the world. You'll see there's about 8 of them. Our team has worked on each and every one of these plants, whether it's operations, maintenance, etc. So we've been involved with that. The combined experience of the team is more than 400 years in GTL specific. So we believe that we are in a good position to take this project on and make a success of it. We have partnered with major international companies, and I'm talking about super majors, and the likes of your top 5 oil and gas companies in the world. They will make sure that they supply us all the gas, so we've partnered with them. They will buy all our product. They will provide us with the technology, and licensing around that. And the other thing that we will do is we will, this will be a smart manufacturing facility, so we will use data, a lot of measurements and data lake, and we will use AI and machine learning to optimize the facility. Optimization of the facility is important because one of the critical components is to have this plant running at full optimization and full availability as much as we can. So any improvements you can do there in terms of your plant operations will just contribute to the success of this plant. All right. We believe that this is a start of the downstream development of the industry in North Dakota. I did mention that with gas, you can either take it away by pipelines, or you can create typical industries like ours downstream. And we think this is a catalyst for further downstream development of gas-related products. And typical projects like ammonia, etc., can follow after this. We will be a consistent off-taker for 30 years at least on this plant, and that buffers you against, again, the boom and bust cycles that you see with oil, and sometimes, you know, higher offtake and lower offtake. This is a consistent offtake over 30 years and a good offtake of the gas. In terms of job creation, we believe this creates good paying jobs for the community. We will be, of course, a contributor to the tax system for the county, etc. Next one, Sam. So to give you an idea, what does this mean in terms of job creation? We will there are certain multipliers that you can typically use, but you've got your full-time employees at the plant that will be there. But on top of that, you've got induced jobs and you've got indirect jobs that are being created. And you can see that that the numbers add up at the end, and it becomes quite significant. The biggest number of people that will be on site before we have operations will be during construction. And we see at times about 1,500, 1,600 people that will be on site. But you can see the impact is quite significant on job creation, etc. So, next one. All right. We actually ran a REMI model through the state to understand what is the impact of a project like this. So you'll see there on the top arrow, we're talking about 100 full-time employees. But because of the indirect employment and induced employment, you can see that the numbers stack up, and it actually adds up to more than 2,000 people from the REMI model that the state ran for us that is impacted by introducing this. There will be considerable wages and salaries that we believe got a positive impact. That's the second line. And then the third line I just want to highlight as well. Over 5 years, there's about a $6 billion impact that this project will bring to the state. I think when the announcement was made last year, it was announced that this is the single biggest investment opportunity that is coming into North Dakota. And I'm going to hand back to Nico, and then we can take questions.
Nico, are you still on? Okay, there you go. Yep, go ahead.
Yep, and I made the classic mistake and muted myself before I started, so my apologies. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to actually give a bit of insight about what we do and how we do it. It is really a privilege for us to be part of this, and talking to the public and also the county. Maybe closing remarks. We really enjoy working with the county. One, I think too, a lot of the products, Ron glossed over it, but the environmental impact is, low because we don't need a lot of water. We will be able to generate power, and the products like the diesel is biodegradable. So I think overall it is a very positive impact. The job creation for people, indirects working through creating, high-end jobs is really going to, create a stimulus in the environment. And we think, with a strategic insight from the community as well as the state, there will be a lot of benefits. But thank you very much for this opportunity. Maybe I want to congratulate the county also for understanding the significance of this location in Williston, because it is strategically located. It has got access to gas, it's got access to rail, it's got access to the product pipelines, and it's got access to carbon capture and sequestration. So all a winning combination with the support of the state as well. So thank you. And, we will, take any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you. What we'll do, Nico, is we'll go through the public hearing, and I'm sure there'll be some questions, and we'll have you guys, Ron, you as well, come back up and answer those. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, this is a public hearing, so I'm guessing there's some in the audience that would like to come up and speak.
Roger Bierce, from the area that this plant will be put. And I can't argue with the benefits of this plant at all. I mean, it looks like it's in a good, we need something like this, but I don't want it in my backyard. I've got 3 little grandkids that are going to be within a 3/4 of a mile of this thing. And Marty's got 3 little kids, are going to be within 500 feet. Can you guys see that there? And Debbie Bierce is going to be within 500 feet. That's a city block. And when you were talking earlier about where it should be, we should designate those spots, take them out of there for sure. I don't know where the physical plant is going to go. It'd have been nice if you'd have come into the community and laid this out for us so we could tell where this is going. And it concerns me a lot. Anytime there's a refinery, I've been down to Billings and you can smell that refinery from miles around. And it's kind of a funny thing. You don't see the big fancy houses downwind from a refinery. And that's got us concerned quite a bit. My wife has lung problems, and one thing about natural gas, it's you don't smell it, but it could be there. So if we could do something there, if we knew where the physical plant was going, I'd say postpone this until we know exactly where the physical plant is going to go and where the other facilities are going to go. Are we going to be inundated, but with noise, light pollution? We got quite a bit of that already from the casino. So anyway, I would like you to reconsider this and put it off until we can see where the physical plant is going to be and what all the ideas are for this. They're talking fertilizer, which would be good for our area. They're talking a lot of things, but I would rather it be somewhere else than in my backyard. There's something else. It seems to me, and Dan, maybe we went through this all one other time with the refinery in the same area. And I thought we were going to designate this as the buffer zone between refineries and Savage at a county plan. What does the county plan show for this area?
Sure. So our comprehensive plan does state that commercial and industrial uses can be along these major highways. It doesn't particularly cover this specific area, but in our comprehensive plan, it talks about adjacent industrial uses can go next to other industrial uses. So that's why they didn't have to get a comprehensive plan amendment, is because these properties are adjacent to the other properties that are zoned heavy industrial.
And concerned about roads. I didn't realize that Hardscrabble even was informed about this, and it kind of took me by surprise that, because we didn't know if they approved this or not, and apparently they did. Was that Hardscrabble that approved this?
Hardscrabble did, yeah, the township received this packet and made a recommendation for approval with that condition that when the CUP gets applied for, that we'll come back and address all of these other issues too. So tonight it's just the zone change, but when they do apply for the conditional use permit, we're gonna talk about access, lighting, noise, buffer zones, things like that, ingress, egress, but that will happen at the time of the conditional use permit.
Okay, I guess that's all I got. I would like you to postpone this until there is a physical description of where the plant's gonna be and how it'll affect mainly Marty. I'm a mile and a half away from it, but mainly Marty and my son Michael and Debbie, when you address those situations. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Roger. Okay, any other public input? Anybody else would like to speak? Any?
Hello, I'm Marty. I am one of the families that is living right there. Roger said it is within 500 feet of what is going to be rezoned. This all did go through as an idea back in, I want to say 2014. Dan, Tate, you were there. Kind of the same idea, same plot of land. Them same concerns are still what we have today. 8 Mile Creek flows right there. Before, one of the reasons was that was going to be the buffer zone. Buffer zone for the creek, buffer zone for the high, the residential, and then what was zoned already industrial, develop that. Right there on that map, I'm looking at probably 250 acres that hasn't been developed, maybe 200. Fictitious ideas are up in the air and all that stuff. But since 2014, I would say that picture's from 2017, that Google Earth image. It's kind of outdated. Still looks the same. Nothing's been done on what is already zoned industrial. Once I was told this plant was going to take up 100 acres, kind of like what the Hess plant in Tioga is. It's kind of what they told me to look at. That would fit on already what's zoned industrial. My understanding is they can't get along with the Yellowstone group that owns that property. Because of that, that doesn't need to get pushed over into our neighborhood. It's already zoned. Keep it over there. Develop what's zoned before we sprawl out to the community side of it. Not saying it'll never happen, but we need to develop what's already zoned before we push it over onto us. What else? Nothing's been said about an idea or the design so we can look at and see where it would fit. Back in February, I got a call that said they moved all operations to Oklahoma. They're done with up here. So now they've come back as, they need a spot still. But I think there's a spot, there's a fit, there's a demand for the community, for it, but it needs to fit in what's already zoned. So, okay, thanks.
Thanks, Martin. Okay. Anyone else? Yep.
I'm Tony Barry Hansen. We own some property that's adjacent to the Bierces, and they do our farming for us. I was here in 2014. I remember the hearing. I remember saying there was going to be a buffer zone. I'm very, very disappointed that that didn't happen. I heard all of the things. I think the Saralon plant, I think it's a great idea. It's terrific. Like Marty said, where it belongs. And it does not belong so close to residences that it impacts our quality of life. And it will. And they won't be able to stay within their original footprint. They're already talking about another section. So when they go to phase 2, does that mean, oh, we're going to come back, we're going to try and buy you out? Are they going to try and do eminent domain? What happens to our water supply? Water is very tough to get to. Most of that land was originally patented as desert claim. So what does that do to impact us? I go back to the fact that there is land already approved for this type of facility. It does not need to be pushed up closer to where people are living and trying to have a quality of life. I don't know about the environmental impact and what's happening there, if there has been any kind of a study, but things are definitely changing. The amount of pipelines going through there has definitely increased. And I, for one, as a landowner, would like to see fewer pipelines. Maybe we don't need quite so many. Maybe there's other ways that we could get the oil out. That might be my East Coast mentality, sorry. But the jobs that they create, it happens all the time up here. We're gonna have wonderful jobs, it's gonna be terrific. Okay, you guys get a hammer and get out there and build. And then they go away. And then they bring in their own people because the professionals are not here. Are they gonna be here? Can we keep them here? Do we need them here? I don't know. I don't know what this is all about. You know, I don't know what kind of, are you looking at engineers? Or are you looking at somebody that can just take notes and keep track of things? I don't know what that's gonna do for the community either. And if they do need those, where are we gonna get the workers? At this point, we can't stock McDonald's. So where are we gonna come up with those people to fill the hundreds of jobs? And I just see a whole lot of issues that aren't addressed yet, and I'd like to see things put on hold until we have a better understanding of what this actually is. I did a quick Google search on naphtha because that was chiming bells too, back from, I don't know, years ago in my geology classes, and that's highly flammable. So how do we protect the people that are around there as residents from that? Because it's going to have to be transported. You're going to have to be safe with it. How can we guarantee? And also looking at, well, I think that's pretty much it, but that was the naphtha really kind of alarmed me. We're going to get it back to Canada. How? How do we do it safely? I mean, I'm sure they know, but that's what they do for a living. I think that the plant is definitely, it's a great idea. And I hate to be a knot in my backyard. But truly, I really was thinking about building a retirement house down there. And I'm just not feeling it right this minute. So it would be great if you could put it on hold.
Thank you, Tony.
I'm Trevor John, and I apologize how I dressed. I just left work, come straight up here. I was a little late. So normally I'd be here dressed like Ron. I too am a resident down there, but I also too have lived in Williston and Williams County for almost 7 years now. And I've been laid off twice. I've had times where I haven't been able to send money on time down to my kids down in Utah because of being laid off. We need more full-time jobs, such as the Saralon plant and the other proposed plants that are down there. I'm for the Saralon plant and for these guys. They do, with the current standards, the state of North Dakota, Williams County, and EPA and others, right, air quality. You know, those feasibilities, those, you know, findings of some significant impact, those will be done. And I live down there too, and I'm also gonna be building a plant down there too. So when you're talking about the other proposed areas, or the other areas that are not, not being utilized, they probably will be. And if the land hasn't been purchased already, it may be in the future. But the land is the area that that is currently zoned heavy industrial there's not enough. And I can see why Sarah-Lon is here asking for more land, because it just isn't enough for what's proposed down there. And some of those projects will be breaking ground this year. So I just wanted to answer some of those questions that the Bierces and them have asked. And yes, I've got a lot of the same concerns you do. I do, but I've built these types of plants all over the U.S. and there's ways to mitigate things, and I know these guys will do that, mitigate the risks. So I'm in support of it. I just wanted to let you guys know that we need the full-time employment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trev. Anyone else wish to speak?
My name is Jolynn Bierce, and I do have some health concerns. I currently have an autoimmune disease with my lungs. In reading about any propane plants, it sounds like you should have a 3-mile buffer zone, and we will be within that 3-mile buffer zone of the edge of that property. These other farmers are within 500 feet of that. We also have Trenton School, which is about 3 miles from the proposed area. There's the cluster north of the highway. All of that should be taken into consideration with making this industrial. It's not, there may not be a lot of houses, but it still impacts a lot of people. And I like the idea of the conditional permit if you do approve it, so that, like you said, it doesn't open it up for anything coming into that area. But I think what is being proposed, it's a wonderful idea, but why can they not move it further west and build where there are less people? You don't have the city of Trenton. The other concern I have is I drive that highway, and I don't know if you guys have been out on that highway. It is very busy for a 2-lane road, and I think that needs to be looked into too before you start bringing in 1,000 new workers to this area as far as traffic. So I am not in favor of this being put in that area right there.
Thank you, Jolene. Anyone else? Yep.
Hi, my name is Michael Bierce. My parents have already said pretty much everything I wanted to say. I'm just curious, this is good farmland. It's close to the river, potentially used as irrigated farmland, and we're in a drought. I know droughts don't last forever, but there's also a lot of land that can't be irrigated that could be a better area for rezoning to industrial, and so that's my concern, other than what my parents have said already. So like light pollution, sound pollution, aesthetics, it's not the best thing to look at if you ask me. So yeah, I live right in the area, and have a family that I really don't want around a gas plant or whatever. But I think it's a great facility. It sounds like it could be very beneficial. So if there could be a better place for it, I think that'd be the best. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Michael. Anyone else wish to speak? I'll ask one more time. Anybody else wish to speak on this matter?
I'm David Hoffman Tate and the rest of you, and I've farmed there and pretty much a neighbor to all the Bierces and have been our whole life. And when you fly into western North Dakota, you don't need streetlights because there's flares going everywhere. And we know that we have got that potential to get that done. I think that the whole thing is the right idea, and with the rail and everything else, it's probably in the right place. I just think we have to have at least amount of effect to the people that live there as we can, and we know that the governor of North Dakota and the people of western North Dakota and Williston, everybody says not in our backyard. It's just not their backyard they're talking about, it's ours. So that's what concerns us. And I know that when Savage come in there, we had a meeting down at the Buford Hall and they were talking about one big tank. Next day they came in front of the county commissioners and they changed from 8 o'clock at night to 8 o'clock in the morning to about 4 big tanks. And so to sit here and listen to what these guys have to say and not think that a little bit of it isn't baffle us with bullshit, I think that we have to be a little bit concerned about that. Does that make any sense to you? That what they say is what they do. Thanks.
Thanks, David. Okay, one more time. Anybody else wish to speak? I'll close the hearing. Okay, I'm sure there's lots of questions, lots of concerns. The concerns, I cannot disagree, I don't disagree with them, which is the reason why I'm asking if we could tie the zone change subject to getting approval from the SBU, because in the SBU, they're gonna have to have this fully laid out from a location, the buffers, the access, the whole ball of wax will be tied up within that. And I guess that's why I was asking that question earlier. And I would suggest, it's just my opinion, if you guys would stick around and maybe exchange names and numbers and have a conversation with these owners, I think it'd be in your guys' best interest, everyone's best interest for that matter. And just sit down and sit at the table and lay it out there and say, here's what it is, here's where it's gonna go, here's where we'd like it to go, here's how it's gonna work, here's how it's gonna operate. And just, these people have to live there, and I think you owe that to them. What? Well, I get you, Mike, I get you. Well, let us go through the comments, and like I said, I highly would recommend that you guys exchange names and numbers and have these conversations. But a lot of this is gonna come up through the SPU process, and that's where the real teeth is, in my opinion. So just hang with us here for a while. I get where you're going though, Mike, I do. Sam, do you want to?
I was just going to comment on the evaluation criteria that we do look at with conditional use permits. I mean, we're going to be contacting every agency that we can to make sure that they've been in communication with Sarah-Lon and that they're okay with this coming in. We recognize we need to make sure DOT is on board, and if 1804 can exist in its current state with something like this. So we are already, considering that, and when they do apply for the conditional use permit, we will have all of those answers ready for you. This is just for the zone change, and I think that's a smart tactic to link the approval of the zone change to the approval of the conditional use permit, and we can for sure do that.
Well, and then it keeps everybody on the straight and narrow that they're gonna have to perform and provide documentation, information, what they're going to do, how it's gonna be run, and it has to be within that SBU, or they don't get the zone change. And that was the whole point, because I would gather that is the biggest issue of concern. So I appreciate you saying that. All right, guys, what's the discussion? I'm sure the wheels are turning.
Mr. Chair, can I maybe make a few comments?
Yes, sir.
I think as rightly been said, number one, We don't know exactly, where the layout on that piece of land is going to be. There's a few factors to consider as well. As we do discovery, there is a lot of pipelines, and we want to make sure you can't build on top of pipelines. That is risky. And we want to make sure that we, get it in the right location, as close to the Savage as possible. There's already discussions with Savage that we could put some of the tanks inside the rail loop, so not closer to the people, but inside the loop. General, the second question that came up about the water and the drought, our process is actually creating water, and we have minimal water requirement. I think that's one of the beauty. We can even, supply some of the water, depends on, what has been required, and that has been looked into. Third question about the NAFTA. We will transport that via pipeline. So bring it in from the Senex pipe, take it to the Senex pipeline and then move that out. So no risky options to actually, transport it via existing routes. The question about the propane, and, we don't actually bring propane on site. It is a clean gas without the propane and the ethane. So that has been cleaned before it's actually coming to the site, and that has been dealt with existing infrastructure. So I think the other comment made about, the air permit and, the condition, I think, currently it will do two things. We will actually reduce the flaring because we will take away the gas. So it will be supplied. And it is subject to an air permit being approved by the DEQ. And, to make sure that we, don't, do things that we shouldn't. I think on the job creation, our approach is going to be local as much as possible. The numbers that you saw there, we know that we've got about 90, plus people. And yes, there will be some specialists, but we've got intensive training programs because we need the local people to be part of this. And, we actually consisting ourselves, as we grow into this, that we would become local. And, how much better to see the family and people being employed. And I think I do know that a lot of people talk about what they want to do and not a lot is realizing. I think we can prove that over time, and I think we've done so far what we've said we've done. We came in and have a look, and we started with, a lot of the work to understand the geology, to understand the pipelines, to understand, what are the different requirements. So I think that is a process. And alongside of that process, there will be gates of approvals by the relevant authorities to make sure that we comply with that. We used to work globally, and we cannot afford that we don't comply. So do we understand everything today? No, we don't. There's still some items and stuff that we need to work through, but we will keep people informed about it as best as we can. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Okay, Mark, you had a question.
Well, I guess the one thing that comes to mind to me, and I don't know if it's appropriate or not, is when you look back in the days when the buyout on the farming in that area, when they came from the bottoms to the upper above the levee. A project of this magnitude, I would like to see these guys get with the local people and look at a relocation, or if that's something possible, if it's possible to move the houses back with tying in with Savage there and stuff. I mean, I guess to me it looks like a good location for it, but I guess I'd like to see them talk with you and see if there's a chance of relocating you or moving your houses or doing something like that. That's one way I see of doing stuff, but I guess we all got to get together and talk and see what we can do.
Well, where are you gonna go? Well, and that goes back to, like we talked earlier, it's in the, I appreciate the fact you've done all these studies and geological studies and how this thing operates, which is way beyond how most of us can comprehend that. But at the end of the day, if you can't get along with the neighbors and you guys don't communicate, it just doesn't, things don't work. That's not how it works out here. You gotta know your neighbors, you gotta get along with your neighbors, you gotta work with your neighbors. That's the most important, because if you get their support, things tend to slide through a lot easier, both locally and on the state level. I do. I think communication, like I said, you can spend all the money you want on this, on surveys and studies, but until you have a relationship built with your neighbors, you got a tough road. No matter, I don't care what kind of business you're in, that's just how it works. So that's just my opinion. Again, and that goes back to tying this with the SBU. So it's not left dangling out there, because we don't know what's gonna happen if they don't fulfill what they say they're gonna do. Now they can peel it off, and you could have a lot of buildings and a lot of traffic and a whole lot of stuff that we have no control over because the zone's already been approved, or the zoning's been approved, and that's a concern. So.
Good. Mr. Chairman, I don't disagree. I think it's good guidance. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Go ahead, Dan.
I have a two-part question. There's been a lot of talk about pipelines. So that's the first question, because pipelines have impacts and require easements and a lot of input from the surrounding area. And then the second question, Mr. Chairman, carbon sequestration. Is that the right way to say that?
I can't spell it, so I can't even say it.
Yeah, but fighting my sinus cold and trying to say that at the same time is a little difficult. But where will that happen? Is that going to be throughout the area? Where does the injection of the carbon take place, Mr. Opperman? Could you tell us that?
We have not got a final location on that anticipated plot, but it would, in that area demarcated. The ERC is currently, going to look at and coming back to us with a proposal of how to go forward and review that. We know that, the area below this, site and location is well suited for that, but I can't give you a definitive answer today yet.
I have a question, Tate. Are some of the permits and licenses that need to be obtained from the state, are they dependent on this getting rezoned, I would assume?
Yeah, so it's kind of a similar process to what we went through with Secure, and yeah. So what we figured out is they do need local approval, but our local approval is contingent upon state approval. So the conditional use permit that they'll apply for, we will have all of the permits that they'll need to obtain from the state and federal within our conditions. So if they don't get approval from DEQ, then they can't operate on that site.
Thanks, Sam. Any other questions? Yep. Go ahead, Mark.
I guess I got one question for the Bierce family. With Savage down there right now, does that really, do you notice them down there? I mean, are they a good neighbor? Is there problems with noise or lighting or anything like that down there now with the distance that they're at from your place?
I would say it depends. Usually pretty good, usually very good. I want to say within 2 weeks ago, every 10 minutes, there was a horn honk.
You want to come up to the mic, just because it's all being recorded, and there's people out there that need to hear if you would think.
This is Marty. I would say Savage has been great. Lots of rail traffic, a lot of rail traffic, coming and going. But usually I'm guessing the radios they use work all the time. But like 2 weeks ago, every 10 minutes we had a horn honk for about 3 days straight. every 10 minutes. Horn honk, horn honk. And the amount of rail traffic that's going in and out of there, I just don't know how they could handle this facility that much more rail traffic there. 'Cause we already have trains backed up, coming and going, circling. I mean, they're doing a good job of transporting oil, but to dump this much more work on that, I don't know, it's a lot. And another question I had, does this company, do they bring in out-of-state carbon now? And are they injecting out-of-state carbon into our ground here? Or are they all just injecting their own carbon? Because there's a big deal going on about pipeline coming in of bringing carbon from out of state, and they're wanting to go to western North Dakota with it. So is this something that this out of state carbon's getting piped in, and this is where it's going to go?
We'll let Ron or Nico, you want to answer that?
Yeah, we can emphatically say no. This is for the facility and what has been planned on the site. No out-of-state carbon coming in at all. And maybe while I've got the floor, Mr. Chairman, maybe answer the question about rail as well. The Savage Rail facility has got the ability, and when we spoke with Justin and had conversations, you know, a capability of running about, and previously they did, you know, from 50 to about 100 unit trains a month. And that has dropped down because of all the pipelines and then the product being shipped through pipelines. So, you know, so they've got, you know, a lot of the capacity. We will not even use all of their capacity because we also plan to do, you know, the biggest, the ultra low sulfur diesel through a pipeline. So that would not influence, you know, the local rail facility.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions, discussion, comments, suggestions? I'm running out of words. Wherever this goes, if you guys are gonna run with this, I do think you really do need to communicate with the neighbors. Just exchange your names, get some meetings set up with the neighbors, and sit down at the table. It's amazing what you can get done. Just my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. We would definitely you do that. Ron is available in the meeting, and please supply contact details, and we will set up meetings to have conversations. Yes, we will do. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, what are the wishes? Nico, can I ask you a question? If this were to get tabled till the next meeting and allow you guys time to communicate with the neighbors, is that gonna, where does that put you guys? And I'm not talking financial, I'm talking in terms of time. Because if you kind of sense the tone, I don't think people are against it. I think there just needs to be some dialogue with the neighbors and have the comfort zone and support from your neighbors, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it makes sense. So, and maybe I don't fully understand the question. So is the, you know, the thinking of suggestion, I can understand, you know, linking it to the conditional use permit. We don't have any problem with that. We just want to understand the process. So maybe repeat the question so that I 100% can understand.
I'll just be real simple.
Proposed.
Yes, sir. If we were to table this with 30 days, for the next 30 days until the next meeting to allow you guys to communicate with the neighbors and then come back and then we can make our decision, would it derail your project on moving forward, or is 30 days okay to have it tabled?
I think, you know, Mr. Chairman, if I can do a, you know, propose, rather than say 30 days, you know, because it requires for us to, you know, to do a few things. On some of the questions, I will not be able to give an answer, you know, even in 60 days. Because the plot plan and the design, you know, with, you know, now talking to engineering company and bring them on board, have a look. They're only going to start in about, 6, 2 to 8 weeks. What it will do is we can explain, what we know today, the water use, how we will transport, how we will reduce flaring, some of the job creation and, the rail facilities. I would say that would, be open and we can definitely do that. It will not derail the project. The sooner we can get the zoning approval, the better. But it would not be derailing anything if we've got a requirement to have conversations with the groups of people that highlighted their, concern today.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Well, what we're talking about is the zone change. If the zone change is hooked to the CUP, the stipulations that are gonna come out of that, that will just spur the conversation between the residents and Sarah Lawn.
Yeah.
I mean, that'll all have to get hammered out before the final approval. And if for some reason if it does or doesn't pass, or if it's approved or not approved, that will be it. I mean, if it gets approved, it'll be approved because they've come to an agreement with the residents. Right. And just my 2 cents, I guess, is, and I agree, I think I've lived around ag and oil my whole life. Since the 70s, every boom was always followed by a bust. We gotta do something, we can't keep this high and low stuff. This is a very good thing to keep a level market. And I do understand the backyard thing very, very well, but I can see other residences around here, and if you just move it from here over to there, now it's in this guy's backyard. There isn't a spot out here. I mean, that state line club out west of town here, I would have thought that was out in the middle of nowhere as far as you can get. And it was still the same thing. People didn't want it, people liked it, I mean, there's nowhere that's uninhabited. To get that close to the lines they need to come in, the lines they need to go out, in that rail facility. I don't know, where would it go?
And I don't know that it's going to do us any good to postpone it for 30 days, because one of the big issues is where are the facilities going to be located on this property? And if they can't answer that question within the next 30 days, it's not going to help. We'll be at the same place we are now.
Right, so if the zone change happens tied to the CUP, that gets them guys, they get to going. And then they'll be able, that will lead to answers to a lot of these questions.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely agree.
Go ahead, Nico. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with the comments being made. If you link the zoning to the conditional use permit, then all the necessary approvals from the different, authorities and the communication and the discussions would take place. I think for us as well, the closer we actually to the rail facility, the better, because then, we don't need to transport things even further. But it is not as straightforward as that, because even close to the rail facility, there's some underground pipelines, and either we move them or reroute them, because you can't put heavy equipment, over it. So it's not a clear-cut answer. We will try to make it as best as we can, because you need to balance the benefits, the impacts, location, how to move things. And I think that's why we subscribe to, the process that has been outlined, with conditional approval, with the state of air permits, and any of the other requirements that are there, and we want to do that. So that would make a lot of sense.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mark. You want to say that?
And I'm with you on that, Barry. It's just, are we giving them a false go-ahead? I mean, we give you, we rezone the land, but we really didn't if we don't get the CUP done.
Well, but
They can't move forward on
the CUP is still gonna, I mean, whether they come to fruition or not, it's still gonna require the DEQ's approval, the state for the air quality approval. I mean, there's a lot more approvals that come after us.
Yeah, the only thing I'm hoping is that they can get, first step to me is to get together with the neighbors. Whether we,
I agree,
Later-
I agree wholeheartedly, but this will, I mean, they'll have no choice but to, they're gonna have to get together, because they're gonna have to live alongside each other. So, you know, you don't wanna spend the rest of your life throwing rocks at, you know, each other, so.
I'm with you.
I mean, either
way,
you must have something.
Well, it seems that we're all somewhat uncomfortable because we don't have enough information. So what is the best way to get that information? I think that's really the question before us. Is approving the zone change to get the information the best way to get that information, or is tabling it and waiting to see if the information is provided later? Or are we just delaying?
Well, if you
With no
tie it-
outcome.
I think if you tie it together, the zone change doesn't get approved till the SPU is approved. If the SPU doesn't get approved, it stays ag. As long as you tie it, and again, that goes back to the base of the question. If you tie it together, they can't go dig. Yep. So if you're gonna run with it, just make sure, my opinion would be is to tie it together.
One final question then, Mr. Chairman, is it a lack of interest in willing to invest until you have the zone change in, you know, putting together the complete plan? Is that part of the problem with this? That you need the zone change to trip the lever to invest in the engineering and in all the planning?
Who wants to answer that, Ron or Nico?
Mr. Chair, I can answer that. You know, like everything else, it's not as straightforward answer. You know, because you buy land with a condition that you would get zone changes. You know, want to prove that, you know, to go to the next step and do the engineering. You also know that there is you know, the way to do this, any of the risks that you can mitigate along the way to move it forward, you want to do as early as you can, if it makes sense. So do we actually, you know, practical way, are we going to stop the engineering before we, you know, get the zone change? We cannot do that and wait that long, because if we wait that long, you know, and you link it to the conditional use permit, you know, you need to get approved, you know, let's 4 to 6 months finalized before we, you know, get the engineering done. We can't get the, you know, the environmental approval, the air permit, if we don't do the engineering. So in this, there is definitely where, you know, we committed to already do some of the work, and that means that we will need to do some of the engineering, even if we don't have the, you know, the site zoning completed. If we can get the site zoning with the conditions precedent, you know, to say that it's linked to the conditional use permit, makes sense. And it is a risk, but that is something that we worthwhile think, you know, to move forward, because, you know, somehow I think we believe that the vision and the strategy to do this is the right thing to do for the area. You will create a magnitude of economic force that will benefit and put the community on the map. Is it all about that? No, it's not. It is also about the community and how do we work with you. And I think our commitment is to start working with you and looking at that. But as many things in life, you know, what is first, the chicken or the egg? You know, you don't always know. You start a process and you understand, And even talking to some of the community and the people, we've started with some of the process, but not with everyone. Did we start with that with all the answers? No. If we wait for all the answers and get everyone aligned, it's almost then you would never start anything. So we try to be, balancing, what is required, as well as much as possible what the vision for this area could be. And we believe in that. So a long answer, but maybe, we actually trying to look at the egg and know that we some chickens that needs to come to the table as well. And that's what we're busy doing.
So to get to the SPU, they're gonna spend the money, so if the zone change is approved, they're gonna have to spend the money. If you tie it together, they're gonna have to spend the money. So regardless, if they want the SPU, they're gonna have to spend the necessary resources to gain approval.
It'd be no different than like county highway. We don't design, we do not go through the trouble and expense of designing a new road and then go see if we can get easements. I mean, this is step one.
Yep.
Okay, Mark, you have a question? Okay, what are the wishes?
Mr.
Hold on, Mark, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just think step one would have been buying the land and not having to rezone, since there's already land around there that is zoned. But regardless, we're already past that step. What's making this so hard is all the public input, which is extremely important to hear. But also the project, Barry, I value your input because of Tioga, you know exactly what the plant's like. So this is extremely challenging to process through, sorry. But for moving forward, as you guys have all said, the CUP is a big stopping point. So rezoning it, so essentially my wishes of the board would be rezoning it tied to the CUP, because I think we're gonna have a lot more things to address there.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, just to keep this going, to change the zoning on the said land with staff, or tying it to the CUP with staff comment and with township comments.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
So we have a second. And just so we all understand, if things get approved from a planning standpoint, but they do not on the SPU, the land will stay as agricultural lands.
Yes.
Just so there's no misunderstanding. Okay, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Luis,
Yes.
Shane,
No.
Sherelle,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Tate.
Yes, motion carries. So, yeah, like I say, if you guys, after the meeting, or you walk out now, exchange your names, get the numbers, get the meeting set up, and that's the best advice I can give you at the moment.
Make it easy on us.
Makes it a lot easier on us. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Appreciate the time and effort, and for the community, thank you for your comments. We will take that to heart. Thank you very much. We appreciate this.
you're welcome. Thank you. Item number 3, Yvette Welty for a conditional use permit for a second dwelling on a 10-acre parcel. It's currently zoned agriculture. It's out in Beaufort Township. Sam?
Correct. So we recently got some information. I don't know if you remember this minor subdivision. It came to us, I think, in 2019. We had some issues with access. So as you can see on the map, the turquoise property is the property that's requesting the conditional use permit for the additional house. So as you can see, there is a house on there just to the south of that red line. So that red line there is maintained by the township, but what we figured is there isn't actually a legal easement that is over that road. However, there is an easement that was recorded. I might need to go back and show you this myself, but along the section line, correct. Yes, thank you, Raphael. Perfect. So there's an easement there and then the section line easement there. So technically this property does have legal access. They just don't utilize that access. So I had spoken to the property owner that is adjacent to this property, the subject property, yes. So Mr. John had said that he would be willing to record that access easement. And so I kind of wanted to have that conversation because I had just spoken with him today. So before we could grant, personally, it's my recommendation that if the CUP was approved, we would get recordation of an access easement to allow the subject property to legally cross through Mr. John's property to get to their property. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Other conditions I have regarding the CUP for the additional dwelling is that the dwelling must obtain all necessary permits from the Williams County Building Division, and then as well as stay in compliance with all state and local codes and to adhere to our local zoning and ordinance, zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations. So my additional comment, like I just mentioned, is to record that access easement that's going through sublot 3 or Mr. John's property.
If he's, just a question, if he's got legal access, this person has legal access already, wouldn't that be between them, the two owners, if they want to allow that? We don't want the government sticking their nose in there, do we?
Right. So
I mean, too much could be a bad thing.
And this went before the Board of County Commission too, because so they do have legal access, right? Because they can access the property through that easement as well as the section line, but that's not the access that they physically use.
And why do we care what access they physically use?
That's my question, because let's just say this person dies and
Well, I think
It's
it
not-
boils down to that fella there
Could block
didn't
off.
want to build 3/4 of a mile of road when they've been using that one this whole time. And if that guy's okay with it, what do we care, right?
the problem is if you put an easement there on the plat, it's there for
99 years.
Did the maybe we're thinking too deep. I don't know. I just don't.
This conversation was brought up like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I thought the township had said that that was their road.
So they maintain it, but we couldn't find any record that that is actually their road.
So can't the township approve that as being their road?
The township could do that, but they would have to get approval from those property owners.
Townships can adopt roads, and they don't have to get approval. I mean, I guess the property owners usually want them to do that. But a township can choose to say, even though that road isn't on a section line, we are going to include it into our inventory of township roads, and we're adopting it, and we put it in our minutes, and now it's a township road.
Even if it crosses through someone's
Yeah.
private property.
Yeah.
Well, I think with this access easement that he would grant to Nathan would be for them. If it's a township road, then it has public access to where, but it's not like it's good, it don't go nowhere, but, I mean, there's a difference between public access and an access easement, so.
The road, the access, if that red dotted line weren't there, the individual would still have access, correct?
Legal access, not physical access, because
That's, okay. Gotcha.
in our ordinance requires you have to have both, but Karen's interpretation says it doesn't actually have to be the same road. You can have one road that's legal access and one road that's physical access, but as long as you have both,
Yeah, I'm not
we would just prefer it to be the same road.
We happen to have a couple attorneys in the audience too.
Is Nathan here?
Okay, I guess with, any other questions at this point? We haven't done the hearing yet, but it's a lot of discussion. Holy, holy. Okay, I'm gonna open up the hearing. This is a public hearing. Is there any public input? Yep, come on up, Trev.
All right, so I sent this to your email. Did you get it? Okay, so you've got a copy of it, but we had, before we purchased the land, we had it surveyed. And the actual, if you look at the road, and according to the easement that was allotted for around the Gardner and now my residence, the roadway that's in there is actually even on our property where the rebar stakes are, where it was surveyed. So they would, to save the Welties money from having, or Gardners, to be able to build that access around, Trevor and Lisa John, we'll be happy to allow them that easement across the front. And yes, I don't think this needs to be like a public matter. We just heard that it was coming to the board, so we figured it would represent ourselves. We'd be happy to do that. We'd love to save them the money from having to put that all the way around, because the way it's defined right now is it says that it will be 30 feet past, and Sam can probably read it for you.
Are you talking about the access easement that was
Yes,
granted?
yes.
Okay, so the south 45 feet of the west half of the northwest quarter, north of the canal, except sublot 2, and then the north 100 feet of sublot 1 located in,
I was gonna say.
sorry, nope, that's the wrong one. Okay, the south 30 feet and the east 30 feet of the west half of the northwest quarter, north of the canal, except sublot 2. So
So
that doesn't follow the description of the road, is what
That's
we're saying.
Yep, and I did 5 copies. I didn't know how many would show up today, but I can show it to you if you'd like to. Right, well, an issue that I do have is that, so we talked about the county, or the township being involved with it and approving that and adopting it. And yes, you're right, that would be great if they maintained it. So right now, 39th Circle goes to the very edge of my property, and I believe that's adopted as a county road now. Township road. But they stop, and so far, we didn't have much of a winter until just a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. But, it was, Nathan and Kyle did a great job, and I did too, of maintaining that road. And Kyle goes through and has to maintain that, just even the summertime, just trying to keep all the washboard out of it, really. I mean, he hooks up I think it's a pump jack stand, and drags that road on his own to try to smooth it out for both their benefit and mine as well. So if the township is going to adopt that, which, I wouldn't care one way or another, but it would be nice for them to actually maintain that road.
It looks to me from your map like the township probably has the road up to the corner, and from the corner on is considered a driveway into your place, which the township probably wouldn't adopt and wouldn't maintain.
Right. So that's why I say I don't know that it would be the township issue at this point, but as far as we would concern, we'd entertain the easement to be granted. Granted, I know that there's a cost with that, with title company and such, and these changes, we would work with the Welties on being able to take care of that. Maybe on an exchange, and just as record right here, you can see that their property line actually goes through my driveway. And so then the very corner of my driveway is actually cut off, where legally they could block access to my full driveway. So maybe on an exchange through easements, we could work that out, and that's just what I'd like to put as comment, so.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else wish to comment on this? Public hearing, any public input? Any public input? Close the hearing. What are the wishes of the board? What are the wishes?
I'd make a motion to approve the permit for the second house with staff comments and however they work that out amongst themselves, as long as it's recorded
With the easement.
with the easement. That would be good.
Is there a second to that motion?
Yes.
I'll second.
We have multiple seconds. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Shane,
Yes.
Sherelle,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Louise,
Yes.
Tate.
Yes, motion carries. Number 4, Kathleen Iams for a final plat to rearrange 20 lots into 10. They're currently small residential lots. It's located out in Keys Cove subdivision. Sam, anything on this one?
Just a quick project overview. As you can see in your packet, the applicant is requesting this re-subdivision, so that's the process that we would take this through to create 10 lots from the existing 20. It's kind of hard to see, but it's that center block right there. So currently there's 20 and they're proposing 10. So we're taking them through the re-subdivision process. All of the lots are currently within the existing small lot residential. What spurred this is Upper Missouri District Health has a minimum of 1 acre lots. In their current state, they're under that 1 acre threshold. So the applicant is just requesting to make those 10 acre lots roughly 1 acre each. I have 4 conditions listed in there to update restrictive covenants for the Keys Cove subdivision. Currently, back with the original Keys Cove subdivision, restrictive covenants were recorded, and so we're just gonna update those with the new legal descriptions. To record a maintenance agreement for the existing roads within the Keys Cove subdivision, because there currently isn't a maintenance agreement for those roads. Number 3 is obtain approval from the Board of County Commissions to vacate easements within the plat. So along with them creating 10 lots from the 20 lots, they're gonna vacate those cul-de-sacs in there because they won't be necessary. They'll all have access from those exterior roads. And then the recordation of the updated final plat, which there is a draft within your packet. And the applicant is here, I believe. So if you have specific questions for her, she's there.
Thanks, Sam. Any questions for Sam at this time? Okay, I'm gonna open up the hearing. This is a public hearing. Is there any public input? Any public input? Kathleen's coming on up.
Hello, thank you. I want to start by saying, you know, this board, you're charged with the duty of taking this county forward and developing it according to your plan and looking forward and embracing the new things coming down the pipe. But I think you also have a duty to recognize the history of this county. And Keys Cove is a historical heritage subdivision, and I have some pretty cool pictures I'd like to show you. I wasn't sophisticated enough to get them up on the board. So may I approach and just, okay.
Kathleen Iams for the record, by the way.
My name is Kathleen Key, as in Keys Cove, Imes. The unlucky one that inherited it. Or lucky, I don't know. This picture is just the coolest picture, and I'm sorry I don't have it up. But this was taken, Jack Daniels flew Tom Cantorine and my dad up. Do any of you guys remember those names? Yes. And they took these pictures the first picture in 1971. And it was an aerial of Keys was, a week after it was, engineered and dirt moved and the roads were made, the cul-de-sacs were put in, covenants were recorded, the subdivision was approved, the subdivision is currently legal, we haven't done anything wrong, there's nothing bad about it. 1971. So this picture shows you exactly what is on picture number 2, 51 years later. There has not been one gravel or dirt moved. The roads are still there, the culverts are still there. In fact, the cul-de-sacs inside Block 4 don't even show up because they're grass. They've never been used. So we have this really beautiful historic subdivision that's legal. We haven't done nothing wrong. The only thing is, the health unit changed the septic tank regulations, and we were not grandfathered in. Now, the county worked with Blacktail, those half-acre lots, and helped them get septic systems. But we are on our own. We are told that unless we have one full replatted lot that equals an acre, we can't sell these lots. So we embraced the assistance we got from planning and zoning staff, and all we're doing is moving the lines on this old map artificially, right? No soil is moving, no nothing. We're just seeking to have you grant this re-subdivision so that we may put the center Block 4, there are 10 one-acre lots if this passes. The one in the lower southwest corner is owned by Timothy Ritter, and he has cooperated throughout this process. So Tim owns that one-acre lot there. All the rest are owned by my brother Sean or my husband and I. And we have all signed the paperwork, and all we're asking is please replat these to 1 acres, do away with our cul-de-sacs, and let us get these on the market. We believe there's a real pent-up demand. It's a beautiful historical subdivision, and there just aren't any more on the lake besides this. So that's what we're up to. Thank you.
Question for Kathleen before she leaves? Several, in fact. Now that you've opened the door, with Jack Daniels flying the plane, was Henry Ford from Stockman Motors in the plane with you?
Well, there might have been a cooler in that plane.
The other point I wanted to make, Kathleen, is the difference between this project and the Blacktail project. The Blacktail project, the county was the seller. That's why that one was different.
Okay.
Okay?
Fair enough. And we're not seeking anything for the existing cabins that are there. They're all fine. They are grandfathered in. It's just that the lots in question are vacant. So in order to sell them, we need to modernize the platting. Is that it?
Thanks, Kathleen. Okay, this is a public hearing. Any public input? Any public input? Last time, any public input? Close the,
Motion to approve with staff comments.
is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Shane,
Yes.
Sherrill,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Louise,
Yes.
Tate.
Yes, motion carries. Next one is,
Hey, Tate,
yeah,
who seconded that one? Okay, thanks.
yep, Barry did. Okay, next item, number 8, or number 5, holy. Number 5, Williams County Planning and Zoning Staff for zone lots. The same subdivision, correct?
Same subdivision. Yep. So as you can see on the map, there are 3 parcels that are also highlighted outside of that block 4. As you all know, we did our comprehensive zoning map update a few months ago, and we've missed a few.
I
So,
thought this was already zoned commercial. They
So-
were, weren't they original? I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah. So those 3 lots were honoring that original zone change. That was the intent of the original plat for those to be commercial lots. So those will be changed with your recommendation to rural commercial. We did receive one public comment letter. It was actually inserted into the wrong agenda item, but there was there was a public comment letter submitted to us. Other than that, there's not an organized township board, so we didn't receive any township comment or any other letters of public comment.
So really, at the end of the day, we're just correcting ourselves.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, any questions for Sam? Okay, this is a public hearing. I'll open up the hearing. Any public input? Any public input? Last time, any public input? Close the hearing. What are the wishes of the board?
Same motion, same way.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Cheryl, sorry.
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Louise,
Yes.
Shane,
Yes.
Tate.
Yes, motion carries. Old business, nothing. Discussion, next meeting's May 19th. Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, yeah. All right, come on up. Technically no, but come on up.
This really is in an answer to the question about Savage being a good neighbor. I just did not speak up fast enough. My name is Sheila Hoffman, and I was the school counselor at Trenton School for a long time, but now I'm retired. So one of the things about Savage is that they were wonderful partners in the cleanup that we did on Highway 1804. So what I'd like to say is that if these new companies are going to be in our area, I hope they will help us clean that road. Our family went to Texas at Christmas time, and there was no place, and we drove all the way to Texas that was as dirty as the roads around here. It's just embarrassing. And Savage really helped, Enbridge really helped. There are lots of places that are trucking places that would not help. I don't know what the answer is here, but I hope any new companies will be good neighbors and try to help with that road. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn? We have a motion with a second?